Hello there, what a pleasure to have you join us here on The Big Q with me, Imi Mulekatete Kalema. And on The Big Q today is the British High Commissioner to Rwanda, also who doubles as the non-resident ambassador to Burundi, William Gelling. You're welcome to the studios.
Thank you.
Now, I understand the UK is one of the major I'll call donors or development partners to Rwanda in different sectors like education, majorly, and private sector development, including also the social development programs, among others. How would you rate the performance of Rwandan government in relation to using the aid that has been given by the UK government?
Well, as you know, we've had a really special partnership with Rwanda since 1996, and part of the reason for that is that British taxpayers' funds, which come over here, are so well spent. So, as you say, we have a particular interest in the education sector, and we are very impressed with the way that the Rwandan government uses the money that's brought over here in a transparent and very effective manner. So that's something that we are really proud of and want to continue.
Very good. And now I'm going to indulge in some of the questions that were sent by the audience. Agnes Mbabazi, I'm starting with the lady. Where do you think the arrest of General Karenzi Karachi left the relations between Rwanda and the UK?
Well, it was a difficult period, as everyone knows, and I think the period immediately after the arrest was particularly difficult because we saw some protests outside the High Commission and from the Rwandan government, and it was not an easy time. It wasn't an easy time for me in my position, and it was a rather tense period between the two countries. But as I said, since '96, we've had a very special relationship, and I hope one that will endure for a long time. And because it's a long-term relationship, you know, you do get these hitches. The UK and other countries get hitches all the time. And I hope that we have just about put this particular hitch behind us. You probably know we had our Deputy Foreign Minister Grant Shapps here 6 weeks ago. And part of his reason for coming was to try and put that period behind us.
Under normal circumstances, for friendly nations, like UK is a friendly nation to Rwanda, aren't you supposed to tip off the government in case such a high dignitary official is going to be arrested? Why wasn't it the case? I understand you have worked in the Foreign and Commonwealth Office for over 14 years, so you know when certain things are supposed to be put into place, especially for foreign relations. So why wasn't the government of Rwanda tipped off?
Well, as you probably know, this was a Spanish arrest warrant that was issued. So it wasn't one that came from the UK.
Sure.
The UK, the police and the judiciary are independent of the government. And so it's not, the government doesn't have the role of preventing an arrest from happening. And the reason that the Rwandan government was not tipped off is that when the police decide to make an arrest, they just make an arrest. So it's very difficult to have a period where one could tip someone off. And secondly, if the police decide to arrest someone, no one is allowed to give a tip-off. So that's why we ended up in this particular situation. But we have put a system in place now whereby in the future, if there is prior notification of a visit, this kind of thing should be avoided.
There are reactions in some circles that suggested that this was a retaliation to Rwanda's decision to suspend BBC's FM airing in Rwanda. What's your take on that? It
was definitely not a political decision. It was not in retaliation for anything. It was just a law and order matter on the basis of this Spanish warrant. And I was glad to see that when it came to court, the case was dismissed. Okay,
now I bring in Ruchagutone, who says that your government said it is going to conduct a thorough investigation into the circumstances that led to the arrest of our General Karenzi Karachi. How far with the investigations?
So the government has done an investigation and the conclusion is that we need to put in place a better system in future to ensure that when prior notification and a discussion is had in advance of a visit, we can make sure that the person coming is treated in the right way and we avoid these kinds of problems. So we have put this system in place and we have written to the Rwandan government about it, and I hope this means that in future this cannot happen again.
Okay, and now that brings me to Mugabo John. Following the general's arrest, don't you think the UK government ought to apologize to Rwandans?
Well, I understand where that question is coming from, and quite a lot of people have asked me that myself. And what I say to them is that I completely understand why people are upset, and as we've said to the government here, we very much regret that we got into this situation.
Sure.
But the thing is, I can't really apologise for an action that was taken independently. This was a Spanish warrant, and the police acted independently in executing it. So although we might not like it, I can't really apologise for something we have no control over. So I'm not going to apologise for it, but what I will say is that I am sorry that we ended up in this situation. We have expressed regret for that this whole thing happened, and we have set in place a system to stop it happening again.
Okay, let me not make this about the General Karenzi Karachi. I know we were angry at some point and we were devastated, but a little off. Musime Rwakabi says, why did the UK introduce UK aid? Is it any different from DFID? That's
a good question, and it's actually just a question of branding. And the reason that UK aid was introduced was to make it clear where projects are being carried out that assistance is coming from the UK. That's all. It's only because it didn't, not everyone knows what DFID stands for, and it's not very clear it's from the UK. So it's simply a question of branding. There's no change other than that.
One question from Nyemina Elijah. The situation in Burundi continues to worsen, yet nothing is being done, mostly by globally security players, notably the UK. What has been done, or what is your country doing to mitigate the dangers of this conflict?
Okay.
Hold that thought.
I'll hold it.
And he will give us the answer in part 2. So make sure you remember to be part of part 2 for the Big Q. I am Imi Mulekatete Kalema signing out, and thank you so much for your time. Remember, you can tell us who to host next on the Big Q. So keep being part of the Big Q.